to a certain extent by pointing out that context is actually, depending on the context, I mean, if you're talking chemistry, if you're talking math, if you're talking physics, the context is pretty stable and the truth is pretty clear. And in fact, the ideal example of a truth in a linguistic context would be 2 + 2 = 4. Mathematics, you could use that as kind of like the core STEM, right? Science, technology. What's the economics? No, engineering and medicine, I think. Isn't that STEM? What the STEM stands for? Hello.
Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Mathematics, okay. So not medicine. Shoot, I was close. I've also heard them using STEAM lately. That's the same 4, except you add an A in there, and that stands for the arts. So whoop-de-doo, that's pretty cool. So, depending on the context, it could be very stable. Other contexts, get weaker and weaker and weaker because, we haven't really figured those out yet. They may improve, or like literature, that might be the kind of context where there really is a false idea that you could have a true interpretation. Same thing with like the Bible, or the Quran, or any of those sacred literatures that are so-called the Word of God. Well, if not only is it an immediate problem when you translate it to another language and you try to figure out what does it mean, but even in the one language, what does it mean is an interpretation, right? We know that all the way back to St. Thomas Aquinas, that criticized people for not realizing that. But that adds complexity when you think of it that way, and a lot of people don't like complexity. They want black and white, so-called black and white answers, which actually that's even more complex today. I'm NC 15, as far as I know. I really need to go to a beauty salon. I don't know, where do you go to find out what your official makeup that matches your skin color is? So there's stores where people work that would walk in and say, okay, what color is this? And they would say, oh, here's the chart. It's probably this. Yeah, there you go.
Well, they'll probably just print on like multiple shades and say, try to test it out on you.
And it depends on where on me that I'm looking, because I'm really pretty ugly, with, like I've got these things now, which I believe are called age spots, which happen when you get old. Does that make sense? So, probably what they would use is a skin cream to cover that, right?
No, they just aim it on your neck. And they said your neck and your true skin color. So they test it out on your neck and if it matches your neck skin color.
One of the students that turned in their term paper just the last couple of days was on Sam Harris. And I had another student who was doing a term paper on Sam Harris and couldn't think of more to write. They only had, they didn't even tell me how much they had written so far. I can't imagine not having enough to write for Sam Harris, all the things he gets into. That you could at least write 3,000 words, plus your thoughts about things that he might have said. So I went to a YouTube video of him being interviewed by Glenn Lowry, who was also one of my favorites. And they were really, talking about a couple of issues. Race was certainly one of them, and Sam Harris's response was that he didn't, I don't know if you're familiar with it? Anybody familiar with Sam Harris? Who Sam Harris is? And so this is part of that fuller one.
Utopia, right? Like it's not even, that wouldn't even be utopia.
Sam Harris
It's
is
a bad outcome.
This guy.
In their account. And the
that's
people
Glenn-
that feel this way are, on the far
That's
right,
Glenn Show, so he's the
real
one
racists.
that is
Are
interviewing.
real white supremacists who say that the moral differences and political differences between people are in fact indelible and are right to be drawn at the skin. And the people on the far left, who the far left identitarians who think that it really matters what race you are. These people have to either be convinced or overruled, right and left, and that's a massive political project.
Let me see if I can imagine what they're thinking, because I agree with you that we should be in a world where these things are given less credence. They're thinking about history. First of all, they suspect the person who invites this move. They think you're trying to change the subject. They want justice. They think that the racial disparities to which they will attend by doing the kind of bean counting that you and I might wish they wouldn't do, those disparities are a reflection of structures of domination and devaluation and whatnot. And they want justice, and they think that your effort to call the whole thing off, we had race for a few centuries. As the West came out of Europe and conquered the world, we had race. As we did a colonial thing and a slavery thing and whatnot, we had race. And now we get to the 21st century, we want to call the whole thing off. And they're saying, no, not so quick. My bean counting is really in the service of a larger accountancy, a moral accountancy, which can't even be broached, let alone resolved without attention to the things you're telling me to disattend.
Well, that might be true in certain cases, and that's why I'm consider myself confused around questions of affirmative action. Right? Like, where are the places in our society where affirmative action still makes a lot of sense and is in fact necessary, and where are the places where it's obviously counterproductive? The devil's in the details there.
So, I mean, there's lots of stuff that you could dive in and try. So, they're both very complex. Both of these individuals are very complex. And that's one of the reasons I like them, by the way. I like complexity in those issues because I think you get better results when you deal with the complex nature of the issues. Yeah. You guys heading off? Or you're, yes?
As a return.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank
I
you.
hope you had a good course. I should have asked right up front, if everybody, wanted to compliment me on how well I did the course or, no, that's.
I love the conversations we had. It was really nice.
I should encourage you to take more philosophy courses. We do have them. This is we have the major. I mean, I was just reading the Northern Light paper, and they pointed out that the dance department is closed now. So that was one of the departments that was defunded recently by the decrease in, they're trying to save money on campus. So the sociology department no longer offers the degree, and so on. So there are different departments that are closing down because of the costs. And universities do have to adapt
Are there
to.
companies that, non-profit companies that help support it, I guess?
We have funding drives here. They're actually supported by University Advancement, which is the office up on the second floor, just on the other side of the philosophy department. And so they have funding drives and things. But the University of Alaska, not just Anchorage, but Fairbanks and Southeast, all three major campuses, are really new. We're just 50 years old or so from when they first started. And when you go back east and you compare it to places like the Ivies, who've been there since before there was the United States, in some cases, and they've had alumni who've graduated and went on to run companies and become billionaires and things, and then they, because of the way our tax structure is, or because of their generosity, donate money to their alma mater.
Yeah.
And so you end up with Harvard having more money. It's basically, it could be self-funding. You don't even have to pay a tuition if you're a student and go there, except that they do anyway because it helps build their incredible. But they could afford literally to just run for free because they have such a big not dowry, but a pot of gold,
Yeah.
that they could use. But by comparison, we're so new, and so many of the people that did get their degrees here left, because they were primarily here as a family, for maybe a construction job on the North Slope. And when the pipeline was finished, the father left and took his family with him. So you had people that, moved up here for 7-10 years. While they were here, they needed a college that they could go to, so we had a college for them to go to. Initially Anchorage Community College, but then that merged with the University of Alaska, Anchorage, and then that eventually became the University of Alaska Anchorage as one of the major campuses of the University of Alaska system, which is basically supported, I believe, about $8,000 currently per student by the state. So our tuition, as expensive as it is actually far cheaper than,
Any other college?
well, I don't know about any other college, but I mean, it's much cheaper than the equivalent kind of education that you could expect to get here
Yeah.
because of the funding for the faculty and the structure. In fact, one of my friends who is a retired history professor here believes that the main reason for the university is to create new buildings to hire the engineering companies, the local construction firms to build something to keep them occupied, because otherwise they don't have enough work to do, and all the engineers and the people that would run the company basically would have to go somewhere else to get more work. And leave Alaska. So basically the underhanded purpose of a lot of the university system was to have someone build a new building. And if you look at our campus, all these new superstructures of classrooms, the science building, the new library, the new arena, the Alaska Airlines arena, magnificent structures and hardly any students.
Yeah.
What's the deal?
I think, isn't the Alaska Airlines facility, losing money? Because, I don't know, I heard that, there's not as much revenue coming in that area.
Well, yeah, in general, especially since COVID hit us, and we've had decreasing enrollments everyone's having that, not just our university system here in Alaska, but nationwide. That's a problem. Maybe even worldwide, I don't know. But a lot of that was because universities had to go online only,
Mm-hmm.
because of COVID. And a lot of people felt like, well, gee, you know, I'm not really getting the education I'm paying for if I'm just sitting at home on my computer. I need to be in the physical presence of someone with such a dominating personality, such as moi, to give you the contact hours that would be worth the cost, right? You can laugh uproariously at those kinds of comments, because it's supposed to be fun.
It's kind of crazy though, because like, I mean, I could definitely understand that in the sense of, like, I'm